You've heard it a million times, right? That 10,000 hours of practice is the magic number for greatness. But is that really true? Is there some simple formula for becoming a true expert at something? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on this super famous rule and find out what the science actually says.
You know, it really all boils down to a question that I bet every single one of us has asked ourselves at some point. This one happens to be from a Reddit user, but that feeling, that question is totally universal. It's the perfect way to jump into a debate that has been going on for centuries.
And that debate, of course, is the classic nature versus nurture. Are the top performers out there, the geniuses, the prodigies, are they just born with some kind of special innate ability? Or are they made through sheer relentless hard work?
For literally centuries, this has been a huge psychological tug-of-war. On one side, you had guys like Sir Francis Galton, who looked at the family trees of really successful people and basically said, yep, genius is in the blood. But then on the other side, you had people like the behaviorist John B. Watson, who famously claimed he could take any baby and, with the right training, turn them into anything, a doctor, a lawyer, you name it.
But in our modern times, that experts are made argument got a massive, massive boost from one incredibly popular idea. An idea that really seemed to settle the whole debate for a lot of people.
And here it is, the 10,000-hour rule. It was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers, and it just took off. The idea was simple and powerful. What separates the best from the rest isn't some God-given talent, but an enormous amount of work. It was so appealing, right? It's so democratic. It means if you just put in the time, you could achieve greatness too.
Okay, but here's where the story gets really interesting. There's a huge twist. The actual scientist whose research the whole rule was based on, a guy named K. Anders Ericsson, came out and said, whoa, hold on. That's a massive oversimplification of my work. The real story, as it turns out, is way more nuanced.
So, what got lost in translation? Well, first off, the number itself. In Ericsson's original study of elite violinists, 10,000 hours was just the average amount of practice they'd put in by the time they were 20. It was never some magic finish line that everyone had to cross. The variation was huge. Some needed way more time, some needed way less.
And second, and this is probably the most important part, Ericsson wasn't talking about just any kind of practice. He was studying a very specific, very rigorous type of training called deliberate practice. So don't think of a basketball player just casually shooting hoops for an hour. No, think of them spending that entire hour on one single move they stink at, over and over, with a coach giving them feedback on every single shot. It's tough, it's mentally exhausting, and as Ericsson himself pointed out, it's usually not very fun.
Okay, so if the 10,000-hour rule is more of a myth, then how much does even this super high-quality deliberate practice actually matter? Well, let's dive in and see what the data has to say about it.
This is the exact question a group of researchers, led by David Hambrick, wanted to answer. They went out and analyzed a ton of studies to figure out, okay, what percentage of the skill difference between people can we chalk up only to deliberate practice?
And the results are pretty shocking, especially in a world like chess, which is all about strategy and practice. It turns out, deliberate practice only accounted for about a third of the difference in skill between players. That leaves a massive 2/3 of the performance gap that's explained by something else entirely.
And it's not just a fluke in chess. We see a very similar pattern in music. Here, practice explained even less, just under 30%. Which means, again, over 70% of the difference between one musician and another comes down to factors that have nothing to do with how many hours they've clocked.
So, if you've ever felt like you're putting in all the work but just not getting the results you think you should, this is for you. What on earth is hiding in that huge, unexplained part of the pie?
Well, the research points to a whole cocktail of ingredients. Things like what age you start play a role. And then you have these cognitive factors, like your general intelligence, or IQ, and other abilities you're born with, like your working memory capacity.
Let me give you a really concrete example. One study found that a pianist's working memory, that's their ability to kind of hold and juggle information in their head, was a huge predictor of how well they could sight read music. And that was true no matter how many hours they had practiced. It shows how a natural cognitive edge can give someone a real advantage.
So what does all this mean? How should we think about mastery now? Let's try to put all these pieces together and build a more realistic picture of what's going on.
If you need one final nail in the coffin for the magic number idea, get a load of this. A study of chess masters found a gap of over 23,000 practice hours between the players who reached the same exact elite level. To put that in perspective, that's like one person practicing full-time for more than a decade longer than another person, just to end up in the same place. It's wild.
And this really brings us to the big takeaway. Deliberate practice is absolutely 100% essential. You will not become an expert without it, period. But it's not enough on its own. The real recipe for mastery isn't just about the quality of your practice, but also about the unique mix of other ingredients that each person brings to the table.
So let's circle all the way back to the beginning. That old nature versus nurture debate can get us stuck, wondering if we have the right stuff. But you know what? Maybe that's just the wrong question. So the next time you feel yourself wondering, am I talented enough? What if you tried asking a different question instead? How can I practice better? Just see what kind of doors that opens up.